following is an NBC special presentation.
Radio City, Midtown Manhattan. It was right here at what used to be known as the RCA Exhibition Center that the program we focus on tonight was first broadcast 40 years ago. Ever since then, from 7 to 9 each and every weekday morning, the Today Show has been a part of American life. Good evening, I'm Bryant Gumbel. And along with Katie Couric, I invite you to join us as we celebrate today's 40th anniversary.
Though widely accepted and often imitated now, the idea of morning television took some getting used to. In the early 50s, it was considered outlandish. In fact, one critic said NBC should just roll over and go back to sleep.
Yeah, well, that didn't stop the pioneers who put that first broadcast on the air 40 years ago. This sidewalk studio behind us was the setting for their grand experiment.
Today, January 14th, 1952. 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are in NBC's World Communications Center in the heart of Radio City, New York. We are in touch with the world. We'll tell you what's happening today. My name is Jack Lasculi. And here is Dave Garroway.
Well, here we are. And good morning to you. The very first good morning of what I hope and suspect will be a great many good mornings between you and I. Here it is. Jack said January 14th, 1952, when NBC begins a new program called Today, and if it doesn't sound too revolutionary, I really believe begins a new kind of television.
Dave Garroway, this show's first host, was more right than he knew. More and more families were buying their first TVs back then, and for them, the Today program would prove a new medium of discovery.
Today's news and entertainment, today's books and music. People would plug into the world through the show, in good times and in bad.
But that was just part of the formula. What made the show click and what's kept it on the air for 40 years was the people. Dave Garroway might have been a master communicator, but luckily he didn't have to talk nonstop for 2 hours all by himself. Jack Lasculi was his right-hand man.
What about a microphone?
Oh, yeah. To boost the ratings, today's producers decided to bring in the chimps. J. Fred Muggs clowned his way into viewers' hearts. And 5 years later, Kokomo was named today's second and probably last animal editor. A bevy of Today girls helped open viewers' eyes each and every morning. Estelle Parsons was the first, followed by former Miss America Lee Merriweather, and singers Helen O'Connell, Betsy Palmer, and Florence Henderson, to name just a few.
Frank Blair joined the team in 1953 and stayed on board for 22 years. John Chancellor took the wheel in 1961 when Dave Garroway retired, but he missed the newsroom and left a year later. That's when Hugh Downs started rising at the crack of dawn.
Something tells me this would be an ideal time for us to take a pause.
When the early bird satellite went up, Hugh took the show on the road.
Barbara Walters started as a Today writer in the early 60s, winning an on-air position with her inventive and daring style. For 13 years, she charmed viewers, world leaders, and her co-hosts, setting new standards for women in journalism. Popular baseball announcer Joe Garagiola was welcomed into the Today family back then and gave new meaning to the words, good sport. Joe left in 1973, but of course he still had another card to play.
Gene Shalit settled into the critics' corner on the day Joe left. He's been digging up or burying movies and chatting with celebrities ever since. In 1971, when Hugh tired of the early shift, Frank McGee arrived. Everyone appreciated his grace and ease and were deeply saddened by his sudden death in 1974. He was replaced by his close friend, Jim Hartz. During the bicentennial, Jim crisscrossed the country.
There were a lot of comings and goings in '76. Tom Brokaw arrived and Barbara Walters departed. That led to a whirlwind search for a new co-host. Candice Bergen gave it a shot, so did Betty Furness. But a 25-year-old Hoosier named Jane Pauley won the coveted position.
The story I've seen begins by noting.
In 1980, Today added Willard Scott as a Goodwill ambassador and got a weatherman to boot. Bryant Gumbel became an early riser in 1982 when Tom started anchoring NBC's nightly news.
In 1989, Jane moved to prime time and Deborah Norville became my co-host. Faith Daniels took over at the news desk and Joe Garagiola came back to the nest. And then last year, Today's national correspondent Katie Couric joined us here at home base. And that's where we are today.
Years ago, Today went on the air with bulky cameras, grainy film footage, and live remotes that were, well, chancy at best. Yet somehow those first Today Show staffers pressed on. It was 1952, World War II was behind us, and everything seemed possible again. Even an upstart morning news show that wanted to be a window on a whole new world.
Lover, when I'm near you and I hear you speak my name.
What did people see in this fishbowl of a studio? Plenty of confusion at first.
These are our tape recording machines that put down the voices of people all over the world who may have spoken during the night.
One critic said in the tangle of wires and equipment, Garraway and Company seemed like baffled fathers on Christmas morning. It was man versus machine.
It not only was unrealistic, it was staggering. I mean, that was a Paleolithic era of news coverage.
Hello, Romney.
Good news, Romney, and thank you from London.
It was really pioneer territory. Nobody had done anything like that.
Good morning, all. With Election Day just 1 week off, Republican leaders are trying to enlist the barnstorming aid of President Eisenhower for a last-minute campaign trip.
It wasn't a sense of will the Today Show work,
Okay.
so much as it was will people watch television in the morning? And the answer was always no.
I clear the gear, I block the knock, I jack the back, I set the clock.
Evening shows like Milton Berle's Texaco Star Theater were television's main course. There were afternoon snacks for children, too, but nothing for breakfast. Most stations ran test patterns until Pat Weaver decided that Americans needed a jump start in the morning.
Now, I think Pat really believed that television had a function to educate and inform people and make people better. That's why I always call him a visionary. He was an idealist, too.
Every man a member of the elite was what we said. Make the common man the uncommon man, because everybody will be at the opera, at the ballet, at the concert hall. Everybody will see the great political events and be a part of it. And the thrust of it all also meant that we could really take the decisions out to the public. If you saw the show, you would meet people that you didn't expect to meet because they were the great brains, the achievers.
Triumph for Frank Lloyd Wright.
Men of importance in the country. We wanted everybody to have the best.
You never said it can't be done.
I believe they're ready to march now, so open the door down there and let them start.
We all had an idea. We went after it. At that time, nobody really knew what could or couldn't be done. We played records, too, you know. We played records. We played whole records. We'd say, and now we'll have such and such, because, you know, Dave was famous for loving jazz and music. And during the record, the camera would pan the newspaper headlines, the weather, and the people out on the street. I forgot that till this minute.
Sentimental Journey. That was